You're listening to Overhead Story Channel. Enjoy.
I wasn't looking for anything that day. Just cleaning. That was the plan. Move the armchair, vacuum behind the bookshelf, maybe finally sort through the stack of unopened mail I kept shoving into drawers to feel productive. A typical Saturday afternoon with nothing to distract me, which meant I was out of excuses. The home office was Jenna's least favorite room in the house. She said it was too sterile, too unlived in. I always argued that was kind of the point. A space to think, not feel. But I got her critique. She liked life with a little color. I liked mine with clean lines. Maybe that was part of the issue. Anyway, I was pulling the armchair back when I saw something tucked under one of the legs, half buried in the carpet, catching just enough light to glint. At first, I thought it was a penny or maybe one of those metal tags from a wine bottle. But when I picked it up, my breath stalled in my throat. It was a bracelet. Gold. Thin. The kind you don't buy for yourself unless you've got money to waste or a reason to impress. It was delicate but deliberate, no frills, just that quiet kind of elegance you only notice if you're paying attention. The clasp was one of those hook types, the kind you see in boutique catalogs. And on the inside, engraved so faintly it almost looked like a scratch, were two initials, J+A. I held it for longer than I should have. It didn't belong to me. That much was obvious. And it didn't look like anything Jenna wore. She wasn't big on jewelry to begin with. Maybe a pair of earrings for work or a dainty necklace on dinner nights, but nothing like this. Certainly nothing engraved. I racked my brain trying to recall if she'd ever worn it. Even once. A gift from her mother? A piece from before we met? Nothing came up. What bothered me more than finding it was the sensation that I had walked in on something I wasn't supposed to know existed. Like overhearing a conversation that had nothing to do with me but somehow told me everything I needed to hear. I left the bracelet on the kitchen counter, right between the fruit bowl and her favorite bottle of sparkling water. No note, no confrontation, just there, waiting, like I was. She came home a little after 6. I heard the garage door rise and fall, then the creak of her boots as they hit the tile, the sound of keys dropping into the ceramic bowl, the zipper of her purse. All routine. Except now I was watching. She didn't notice the bracelet right away. She grabbed a LaCroix, popped it open, leaned against the island like she always did when she needed a minute to unwind. I said, "Hey," she said it back. Then her eyes fell on it. And there it was, that fraction of a second flicker in her expression. Most people wouldn't have seen it. But I'd been married to Jenna for 8 years. I'd memorized every nuance of her face. That tiny pause, the way her fingers tensed just slightly around the can. The parting of her lips like she forgot to take in air. Then she recovered. "Oh," she said with a shrug so casual it felt rehearsed. "That's probably Megan's. She was here last week. Remember? Had a little too much wine, maybe it slipped off." I nodded slowly, like I accepted the answer. Megan was her friend from the design firm. Loud, funny, always overdressed for casual things. She wore jewelry like armor. Could have been hers, I guess. But Megan was left-handed, and this bracelet was meant for the right wrist based on how the clasp bent. Not a big detail, but the kind your brain files away when something's off. Jenna didn't pick it up. She left it sitting there. Said she had a headache from looking at fabric samples all day and went upstairs to shower. No follow-up. No, want me to text Megan? No reaction to me not reacting. And just like that, the bracelet became an object that didn't exist. Or wasn't supposed to. After she closed the door upstairs, I sat down at the table and stared at it. I turned it over in my hand. Again and again. J+A. Jenna and who? Andrew? Alex? Aaron? My stomach twisted every time I tried to fill in the blank. I didn't want to be the guy who jumped to conclusions. That guy loses sleep over misread texts and forgotten birthdays. I'd always taken pride in not being that guy. But here's the thing, they don't tell you what it feels like when something that shouldn't be there suddenly is. They don't tell you how quiet the room gets when your mind shifts from wondering to knowing. Not proof. Not yet. But something deeper than doubt. Jenna and I weren't in a bad place. At least not obviously. We had our share of long silences and polite conversations over dinner that felt more like status updates than connection. She'd been working more late meetings, last-minute revisions, early morning client calls. I didn't question it at first. We both had careers that blurred boundaries. I'm in finance. She's in interior design. Stress comes with the territory. But now, sitting there with that bracelet in my palm, I started remembering things that had never seemed suspicious until that exact moment. The time she came home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. Said it was from a client's husband. Laughed it off. The weekend she went to Palm Springs for a company retreat and came back with a slight sunburn, even though she said she'd stayed indoors the whole time. The new wardrobe. She said it was about confidence, a shift in energy, whatever that meant. I supported it. Told her she looked amazing. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said I always knew how to make her feel beautiful. I believed it. I wanted to. I didn't want to be suspicious. Suspicion is like a slow poison. Once it's in you, it spreads. Colors everything. I left the bracelet where it was, even as days passed. Jenna never mentioned it again. Neither did I. But something shifted between us. It was subtle at first. A contact that didn't last as long. Conversations that stalled before they started. She'd check her phone more often, and I began noticing how she tilted it away when she typed. I wasn't ready to confront her. I told myself I needed more. I didn't want to accuse without facts. But deep down, something had already broken. Or maybe it had been breaking for a while, and the bracelet was just the moment I finally heard the crack. It's strange how small things can feel enormous. A single object, 5 inches long, weighing maybe 2 ounces, can hold the gravity of an entire marriage. I started sleeping lighter, listening for her steps when she came in late, watching the way she touched her phone more than she touched me. I told myself I was imagining things. I didn't want to believe anything yet. But belief isn't always something we choose. Sometimes it chooses us, creeps in, reshapes the way we remember even the most innocent details. That's what the bracelet did. It rewrote the story. And once that happens, there's no going back. After the bracelet, things didn't just go back to normal. Maybe they looked like they did from the outside, same coffee routine in the morning, same dinner discussions about whether we should repaint the guest room. But under the surface, everything had changed. At least for me. The bracelet had rewired something in my brain. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Little patterns, small inconsistencies that never used to matter, but now felt like neon signs in a fog. First was the work schedule. Jenna had always worked hard. Late nights weren't unusual when she was preparing client mood boards or rushing through a last-minute pitch. But over the last 3 months, working late had become her default mode. Sometimes even weekends. That in itself wasn't suspicious. What raised the flag was how vague she'd gotten about the details. I'd ask, "Which client kept you that long?" She'd pause for just a second too long. "Oh, you wouldn't know them. New couple, big place out in the hills. Very zen vibes. Tons of revisions." Except I knew most of her clients. Jenna liked telling stories. She loved describing people's weird tastes, like the man who wanted masculine mid-century and kept insisting everything be black. But this zen couple never came up again. Not once. Then there was her phone. She used to leave it around the house like it was an old pair of socks. Now it was glued to her side. At night it would buzz and she'd flip it over quickly. One night, I saw a message pop up while we were brushing our teeth. The name was just the letter A. And the message preview was gone. Just new message in gray text. She caught me glancing at it in the mirror and gave me a tight smile. "Client stuff," she said. "They always text at the worst times." I didn't push. But that's when I realized she'd turned off her message previews entirely. Something she never used to do. One change is an accident. A dozen? That's a pattern. Our photos started disappearing too. We had this thing. Every trip we took, she'd upload our best sh*TS to her Instagram grid. Hiking in Bend, wine tasting in Sonoma, the ridiculous scooter ride in Austin where I tore my jeans. All of it was there. Until it wasn't. One day they were gone. I didn't notice right away. But a friend from work asked about our last trip. Wanted to see a picture Jenna posted. And when I pulled it up, her profile looked empty. like she'd Marie Kondo'd our relationship. I asked her about it later, casually. She said she was streamlining her brand. Said couples photos didn't fit her new color palette. That's when I knew I was being gaslit. Jenna cared about aesthetics, sure. But she also cared about us. Or she used to. That excuse, that it didn't match her vibe? It sounded like a cover story for a life she didn't want to explain anymore. It wasn't just online. Even in person, something had shifted. Her style had changed. Not in a dramatic midlife crisis way, but in a refined, purposeful way. Sleek silhouettes, deeper lipstick, the kind of lingerie that looked like it belonged in a catalog I'd never seen arrive at our house. The first time I saw it was by accident. I was tossing a load of towels into the wash and noticed something black and lacy caught in the drum. I pulled it out. A bodysuit, strappy and expensive looking. The tag still had the price on it. She hadn't worn anything like that with me in years. And no, it wasn't for our anniversary or a weekend getaway. Nothing like that was on the calendar. I didn't even bring it up. I just folded it like it was nothing and put it back in her drawer. Because what was I going to say? Hey babe, you buying new lingerie for someone else? No, I wasn't ready to be that guy. The one who turns into a detective in his own house. But I could feel him coming. The worst moment, the one that confirmed something was deeply wrong, came 2 weekends ago. Jenna had gone on a team retreat with her firm. It was supposed to be at a resort a few hours up the coast. She left Friday morning, gave me a kiss, said, "Don't forget to water the herbs," and disappeared. She came back Sunday night, later than expected, around 10 p.m. I was half asleep on the couch when I heard her key in the lock. She walked in carrying only her tote bag. No suitcase. Her hair was done like freshly done. Her makeup was light but deliberate. And she smelled different. I couldn't place the scent, but it wasn't hers. Jenna's perfume had always been something subtle, warm, like vanilla mixed with cedar. This one was sharp, expensive, probably something you'd find in a high-end hotel bathroom. A scent that lingered in your clothes even after you'd showered. She smiled, tired but practiced. "Sorry I'm late. Road work was brutal." I nodded. "You didn't take your suitcase?" She blinked. "Oh, they gave us robes and stuff there. I didn't need much." I wanted to ask more, but she yawned and headed upstairs, and I just sat there on the couch like a man trying to unsee a car crash. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the soft click of her phone being unlocked, faint taps on the screen. At one point, she got out of bed and went to the bathroom. I heard her whispering. When she came back, she pretended to be half asleep. I didn't call her out. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, heart thudding like it had something to say but wasn't brave enough to say it. The puzzle was starting to take shape, and the more pieces I added, the clearer it became. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't burnout or stress or a midlife haircut and a yoga retreat. This was a secret life. The worst part? I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I was numb, like my brain was buffering, unable to load the next step. Because when you build your life around someone, you never plan for collapse. You assume you'll patch things, talk it out, find your way back. But this wasn't about arguments or therapy sessions. This was betrayal. Quiet, deliberate, and disguised as distance. I found myself doing something I'd never done before. I started checking her calendar, her texts when she left her phone unlocked, her emails when she forgot to log out of the laptop. I hated myself for it. I hated the paranoia, but I needed to know. I needed to confirm what I already suspected. Every time I found something vague, a blocked call, an email from someone named A.L. about a follow-up dinner, I felt both closer to and further from the truth. One night, I caught myself sitting in my car after she went to bed. Just sitting, listening to the quiet, thinking about the way she used to say my name. How she used to laugh at my bad jokes, brush her hand against mine when we were grocery shopping. Where had that gone? Was it gone? Or had she just moved it somewhere else? I didn't have answers, but I had a bracelet, and now I had 1,000 questions wrapped around it like thorns. I thought I was ready for confirmation. After weeks of second-guessing, of spiraling inside my own head, of watching Jenna drift further away with every too perfect excuse and late return. I told myself that hard evidence would feel like resolution, like finally flipping the last puzzle piece into place. But when the email came, I didn't feel resolved. I felt sick. It arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. I was at my desk, half reading through financial reports, half rehearsing what I might say if I ever confronted her. I was mid-scroll when I saw it. No subject, no sender name, just a strange address made up of numbers and a string of letters. Spam, I figured, but I clicked it anyway. There was nothing in the body of the email, just a cloud drive link. I hovered over it for a few seconds. My cursor trembled, just barely. There was still a part of me, somewhere deep and stupid, that hoped it was a mistake. That maybe I was being paranoid. That maybe the bracelet and the new lingerie and the vanishing photos were symptoms of something else. A midlife reinvention, a career pivot, something we could fix. But I clicked the link, and everything unraveled. The video wasn't long, maybe 2 minutes total. A clip from a security camera, the kind mounted on the corner of a building. Grainy but clear enough to make out faces. It showed the outside of a downtown restaurant, La Bellina. One of those dimly lit, reservation-only places you go to celebrate anniversaries or propose. Not the kind of place for team dinners. I saw her first. Jenna. She walked into frame, standing just outside the restaurant entrance. She looked polished, effortlessly beautiful, in that way that always made me proud and a little *mid-ated. She was wearing a navy dress I'd never seen before. Her hair pulled back loosely, a coat draped over one arm. She stood there for a moment, adjusting her watch, then looked up as a man approached. That's when the air left my lungs. He was younger, maybe early 30s, well-dressed, confident, smiling like they were the only two people on the planet. Jenna smiled back, wide and real. The kind of smile I hadn't seen in a long time. She stepped forward and they hugged. Not friendly, not casual, too familiar, too slow to end. He kissed her on the cheek, and she touched his chest like it was second nature. They walked inside together. I thought that was the end of it, but the clip continued. A second angle, this time from across the street. Now they were inside, seated at a table near the window. Candles flickered on their table. Her hand rested on top of his. She leaned in, laughing at something. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. She didn't flinch, didn't pull away, didn't act like a woman with a husband at home waiting for her. The final seconds of the video showed them walking out of the restaurant together, arms briefly intertwined, then pausing across the street in front of a boutique hotel. The kind with oversized windows and valets in navy blazers. She looked up at him. He said something. She nodded. And then they walked inside. I didn't move for a long time. I just sat there, staring at the screen like it might change. Like maybe if I replayed it enough times, I'd see something different, hesitation, resistance, a moment of doubt. But it wasn't there. What I saw was deliberate. *mate. Familiar. It was her. And it wasn't me. I downloaded the video and saved it twice, labeling it with the date and a neutral title. I didn't know why. Maybe because part of me still thought I might wake up and need proof it was real. When I finally stood up, I realized my hands were shaking. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I don't remember what I ate or if I ate at all. I ignored phone calls. I walked through my house like a stranger, touching the counter she leaned on every morning, the throw blanket she always stole from my side of the couch. Everything was familiar and suddenly foreign. That night I didn't confront her. Couldn't. She came home late again, kissed my cheek like nothing had happened, said something about a tough client meeting and how she might have to work Saturday. I nodded and said, okay, in a voice that didn't feel like mine. She didn't notice, or maybe she didn't care to. I watched her pour herself a glass of wine, watched her scroll through her phone. I tried to look for guilt in her eyes, but she looked normal, at ease, like the woman in the video was a twin I'd never met. After she went to bed, I stayed up, rewatched the video, again and again, around 1 a.m. I searched the city's business registry for La Bellina's ownership. I found it owned by a group of investors and one of the names stood out, Archie Lawson. The A. The same A from the bracelet. It all clicked. I Googled him. He wasn't just charming and well-dressed. He was connected. A financial consultant turned property investor. Mid-30s. Appeared in a few magazine features. Smiled in every photo like he knew a secret the rest of the world hadn't figured out yet. J plus A. Jenna and Archie. I felt sick. Couldn't sleep that night. I just kept pacing. My mind was a storm of voices. Angry, devastated, bitter, quiet. I wanted to scream, break something. Instead, I just sat on the edge of the bed while she slept beside me, completely unaware of how shattered I was. Her breathing slow, peaceful. She looked like the woman I married. But I knew better now. The next morning, I said I had an early client meeting. I left the house before sunrise. Drove with no real destination. Just turned corners until the streets started to blur. Eventually, I parked outside a 24-hour diner and went in. The place was empty. Just a cook in the back and a waitress wiping down menus. I ordered coffee. Didn't drink it. Just sat there staring into the cup, trying to figure out what the hell came next. Because now I wasn't dealing with suspicion anymore. I had proof. And proof changes everything. 2 days. That's how long she waited after the video. 48 hours of silence. Of pretending she didn't know the curtain had lifted. Maybe she thought I hadn't seen it yet. Maybe she assumed I'd let it go. Bury it under some rationalization like I always had before. Or maybe, and this is the one that stuck with me, maybe she didn't care anymore. On the third morning, the doorbell rang at 8:43 a.m. I'd barely finished pouring my coffee. I opened the door to find a courier in a blue windbreaker, holding an envelope like it weighed nothing. Didn't, but it should have. Delivery for Daniel Matthews? That's me. He handed it over, asked for a quick signature, then left. No smile, no eye contact, just another transaction in a day full of them. I stared at the envelope for a while before opening it. My name was printed in bold, and beneath it, the logo of a local law firm, Mason and Grant, LLP. Jenna had filed for divorce. No warning, no conversation, just papers, terms. Sign here, date there. It was clean, surgical, brutal in how little room it left for emotion. The filing cited irreconcilable differences. That phrase, so neat, so hollow, made me laugh, bitter and quiet. The irreconcilable difference, apparently, was that she wanted someone else, and I had dared to notice. Inside, the breakdown was even worse. She was requesting primary residence of the house, monthly spousal support, and a 60-40 division of assets in her favor. Her lawyer was listed as Benjamin Mason, a name I recognized, even though we'd never met. He was one of those attorneys people hired when they wanted speed and control. No fault, fast track, low conflict divorces. If you signed, that was that. The fact that she chose him made everything clear. This wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't a desperate move after being found out. It was a strategy. She'd been planning this. While I'd been agonizing over a bracelet and a video, she'd been drawing battle lines. I set the packet down and sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window while the toast I never meant to make burned quietly in the oven. The birds outside were chirping like it was any other spring morning. The smell of smoke drifted up, and I didn't bother waving it away. Part of me was stunned, not just by the suddenness, but by the cold efficiency of it. Jenna was always measured, but she wasn't heartless. At least not the version I knew. But now she was someone who could orchestrate the exit of an entire marriage with the calm of a business merger. When she came home that evening, I had the packet sitting on the counter, open, marked, read. She saw it immediately. "You got the papers," she said, not even pretending to soften the words. "I did." She took off her shoes and moved past me like it was any other Wednesday. "You knew I would, right?" she added, grabbing a glass from the cabinet. "We haven't been. Okay. For a while. You could have talked to me first." "I tried," she said quickly, like she had a prepared script. "But you didn't want to hear it. Because I didn't know you were already halfway out the door." That made her pause. She looked over at me, holding the glass under the faucet. Her face was unreadable. That used to be one of the things I admired about her, how composed she could be. Now it felt like a wall I'd been slamming into for months. "This isn't about blame," she said, drying her hands. "It's just what needs to happen." She spoke like it was already over, like we were talking about a remodel, not a dismantling of 10 years together. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded. "Mason's a good lawyer." "You know him?" "I know of him," I said. "He's fast. Gets people what they want." "That's the idea." Her tone was so flat it chilled me. She wasn't angry, wasn't pleading, just done. That was when it really hit me. This wasn't reactive. It was tactical. I thought about the timing. How quick the filing came after the video. Too quick to be coincidence. She must have had it prepared already. Drafted, signed, ready to go, waiting for the first crack to appear. Maybe she'd expected me to find out. Maybe she'd counted on it. The bracelet, the photos, the distance. It wasn't unraveling. It was an exit strategy. I didn't say anything else that night. Neither did she. We moved through the same house like two people who'd stumbled into the wrong Airbnb. Quiet, polite, completely detached. But in that silence, something new settled into me. Not grief, not fear. Resolve. I wasn't going to go quietly. I wasn't going to sign away a decade of my life just because she decided to rewrite the ending. She wanted a clean break. She wanted control. She wanted me to fold. But she underestimated something important. I had the truth now, and I wasn't afraid to use it. The thing about people like Benjamin Mason is they rely on assumptions. They build cases like chessboards, always calculating the other side's weakness, and more importantly, expecting them not to fight back. Fast-track divorce lawyers are experts in inertia. They file paperwork fast and quietly, betting the other party will be too shocked, too slow, too tired to respond. But I wasn't shocked anymore. I was angry, and I was ready. I didn't call Mason. I didn't make an appointment. I just showed up. The office was a sleek, downtown suite with frosted glass walls and a receptionist who didn't bother hiding her disinterest. "Do you have an appointment with Mr. Mason?" "No," I said, "but I think he'll want to see me. Tell him it's Daniel Matthews. Regarding Jenna Lawson." Her eyes flicked up, and there it was, the slight shift. Recognition. She typed something quickly and then picked up the phone. "He's in a meeting," she said after a moment, "but he can fit you in shortly." I nodded and took a seat. I didn't bring much, just a plain folder. No dramatic briefcase, no lawyer of my own. I figured he'd let his guard down if I came in looking like someone who didn't know what he was doing. 15 minutes later, Mason walked out, all tailored confidence and business smile charm. He was younger than I expected. Late 30s. Maybe, with that kind of engineered stubble and a Rolex that practically yelled, "I win settlements." "Mr. Matthews," he said, extending a hand. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Please come in." His office looked like a showroom. Abstract art on the walls, glass desk, not a single paper out of place. Everything was curated, including him. I sat down across from him and placed the folder between us. "So," he began, clasping his hands, "I understand this is a difficult time. My goal is to make this as efficient and painless as possible for both parties. Jenna's asked for a fair and uncomplicated division. I think, in the interest of closure, that would be best." I opened the folder and slid it toward him. "Before we talk about fairness, I think you should take a look at this." He paused, then opened it. Inside were 6 high-resolution stills pulled from the video. Jenna and Archie at the restaurant, their hands touching, them entering the hotel. Jenna leaning into his chest, smiling like she'd already forgotten me. Below those were screensh *TS of wire transfers. Jenna's name listed as sender, multiple payments to A. Lawson over the course of 4 months. And beneath that, a page of messages. Cropped and anonymized, but the tone was unmistakable. Emotional. Int * mate. Damning. Mason's face changed in stages. First, surprise. Then discomfort. Then the slow realization that he was no longer sitting across from a man in retreat, but one with ammunition. He closed the folder. "This isn't admissible," he said, clearing his throat. "Private messages and surveillance." "I'm not in court," I said calmly. "Yet." He sat back, the weight of his miscalculation settling over him. "Jenna didn't tell you, did she?" He didn't respond. "She let you walk into this thinking it was a clean break, a quiet split from a loveless marriage. But it's not. She's been cheating. She's been laundering money from our shared accounts and feeding it into someone else's lifestyle. Someone with a track record, by the way. You might want to look up Archie Lawson's history in New Mexico and Oregon. He's not just a boyfriend. He's a pattern." Mason's jaw tightened. "What exactly do you want, Mr. Matthews?" "Fairness," I said. "The real kind. You walk back every one of her demands. She gets nothing she didn't earn. No spousal support. No house. No asset majority. We divide everything 50/50ths, and she walks away with her name and nothing else. And if we don't agree?" I leaned forward. "Then I go public. I leak the video, the **TS, the transfers. I take it to court. I subpoena her financial records. I get statements from our bank, from her firm, from anyone who processed a single dollar tied to this. And I make it very, very ugly." I let the silence hang. "I'm not here to ruin her," I added. "She did that part herself. I'm here to make sure I'm not the one left cleaning it up." Mason exhaled, slow and controlled. "I'll need to speak with my client." "Do that." I stood, retrieved the folder, and walked out without another word. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. That night, Jenna came home earlier than usual. No coat, no heels. Just flats, jeans, and a cardigan like she was playing the part of the old her. She dropped her keys, walked into the kitchen, and leaned against the counter. "You went to Mason." "I did." She looked at me, her face unreadable. "You had no right to ambush him like that." "No," I said. "I had every right. You brought this into our house, into our marriage. You don't get to choose how I react to that." She rubbed her temples. "You don't understand." "I understand more than you think." I cut in. "You weren't trying to end things cleanly. You were trying to beat me to the punch, to control the narrative. You thought I'd roll over." "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she said, eyes glistening. "It just got complicated." "You made it complicated," I said flatly. "You started something with him. You covered it up. And when it got too heavy, you decided to bail before it all came crashing down. But guess what?" I stepped closer. "I'm not the crash. I'm the cleanup." She didn't respond, just stood there, arms folded, like she couldn't decide whether to argue or collapse. "Your lawyer knows the truth now," I said. "So do I. From here on out, we do this my way." She nodded slowly, eyes still cast down. That night, she slept in the guest room without being asked. And for the first time since all this began, I didn't feel powerless. I felt ready. The next night, Jenna went public. She posted a carefully crafted essay on social media, all vague sadness and empowerment cliches. Choosing herself, healing, learning to let go. Photos of her at a beach, looking off into the distance. Comments poured in. Sympathy, encouragement. People who didn't know the truth ate it up. But I wasn't about to let her rewrite the story. The next morning, I posted just 3 things. A still from the hotel camera, a redacted wire transfer screen *T, and a quiet caption. Sometimes the truth doesn't need words. No names. No rage. Just enough. The comments flipped fast. The support she'd harvested started unraveling, thread by thread. People began asking questions. And she went silent. I dug deeper into Archie Lawson. Turns out, Jenna wasn't his first target. He had warrants in 2 states, aliases in 3. A history of charming, draining, and vanishing. Women scammed, accounts emptied, trails erased. Jenna had been moving money to him for months. From our accounts. Sometimes small transfers. Sometimes thousands. All while thinking he was her future. But he was a ghost. parasite. She thought she had love. What she really had was a con.